Kia ora everyone, and welcome to the Chew, Ngā Hou ko Kori, and coming at you from the very cold, wintry Arrowtown. Now today we have a very special guest. Those of you who have lived in Queenstown for a little while, you will absolutely know my next guest, Margaret O'Hanlon. Margaret, welcome to the show.
Hi, Corey.
So just to let people know who are listening here, so Margaret is a local celebrity. She's a singer, actor, director, vocal coach. Everyone knows her for all of those things. Director of Whirlwind Productions.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah. And local legend. So welcome to the show, Margaret.
Welcome, Corey.
And so what we'll do to kick things off, I'll hand over to you. If you can just let us know where you were born and where you grew up and went to school.
Sure. Okay, so I was born in New York City, and my mother is a Southern Quaker. She she was born in North Carolina and grew up in North Carolina, and was lost her mom when she was 12, and moved to a very insular little town in North Carolina called Guilford, which is close to Greensboro. And Greensboro is famous for the sit-in, the Woolworth counter,
Right.
civil rights sit-in. So it was a very racist place. And my mom never really resonated with that. And she had her eye on New York City from the time she was 12 years old. And so when she was 18, as a young girl, a young little Southern girl with a twang, she moved to New York City.
Wow.
I know. Even me, I go, what were you thinking?
Did she have an aim in mind, the Big
She
Apple?
wanted to be an interpreter for the United Nations.
Ah, wow.
My mother was, she loved different cultures. She loved languages. I would say that's something we both have in common, is an insatiable interest in different types of things and people. But when she got there, she realized that those positions are you need a PhD, and she was very naive. She thought she'd just rock up and go, "Hi, I've studied Spanish," and truly. And so it did knock her back a bit, and she then went to secretarial school, and even I know how to type, because when I was growing up, and I'll try never to digress, but I'm just going to digress a little bit.
Good.
And I was growing up, and I always knew that I wanted to be a performer and entertainer. But my parents, like so many parents, they were like, yeah, okay. Well, my dad always said, learn a practical skill. And my mother always said, learn to type. And I did. I learned to type, and I was a typist, and I'm a good typist.
Great.
I can do my 60 per words, but nobody does that. No, nobody sits in front of a typewriter and does 60 words per minute.
I do a lot of typing. And I can touch type as well. So
Yes.
I understand the value of typing, being an IT person.
Yeah. I actually find it very therapeutic.
Yeah.
I find it very therapeutic. So that was my skill that I learned. But anyway, Mom moves to New York, and when she was up here, she had a lot of experiences that didn't go so well, let's put it that way, for her.
Okay.
Romantic experiences.
Okay.
And then she meets my dad. And my father came from, he is a long line of Irish Americans, militant Irish Americans, who you can't say a word nice about anything English. Just crazy. That's the way they are in many respects. He was third generation Irish American, but you can't, the IRA are a nice bunch of people.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, crazy. But that was his background, and he also suffered from mental illness and was a full-blown alcoholic by the time she met him, with aspirations to be an actor. Go Mom, right? Great pick. No. But in spite of her bitterness towards him now, they must have been somewhat in love.
Yeah, of course.
Because
Of course.
she moved in with him. They stayed together. They had 6 children. My father never became an actor. We grew up in poverty. We grew up on welfare, in tenements that kept being demolished, so we had to keep moving, and which is sadly the reality of New York City. But I think I was very fortunate because we grew up during the Johnson years, and Lyndon Johnson.
Yep.
He was a very interesting man because Kennedy was the great hope of liberal America.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And Johnson was his conservative balance to get the votes.
Right.
But after Kennedy died, Johnson became a much more liberal president, and he put in place public programs which were all stripped to their core by Reagan, but they enabled families like mine to survive because they had a program in place for people who had been on welfare. That was our family, and that would pay for the training, which was, a radical idea in America that somebody should invest in another human being, for my father to go back and learn a skill. So because we'd been on welfare for so many years, they paid for his training. And he went back and became a drafting engineer and got his first job.
Wow.
He got his first job when I was 7 or 8. And I can remember we were ecstatic because he came home and told us that he would be making $8,000 a year. And
right.
we just about wept with gratitude. So that's how poor you can be.
Absolutely.
And that's how poor we were.
Yeah.
And America, they're very penalizing of people in poverty, because the welfare checks, they don't hand them to you. It's kind of a reimbursement system. So my mother, yes.
Okay.
We would have to go to the welfare office every 2 weeks with our bills in hand, and they would pay them.
Right.
So you never got money in your hand.
Cash. Yeah.
You got
right.
food stamps, which could only be used at a supermarket. Okay. So when people think about America, the PR that's been done to other countries overseas is insane, because it's only ever about the affluent middle class.
Yeah.
The poverty in America is systemic. To get out of it is extremely, extremely different. We were incredibly lucky. First of all, I hope people understand this. We had what my friends, who were all Black and Puerto Rican, called the complexion with the connection, which
right, yes,
which
totally makes sense.
You can pass for somebody. Well, aside from, if you look at my teeth, you can tell I have we had no money. But when you're white, you can pass, but you can't pass if you're not white.
Brown.
If you're brown or any other color, no way.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we had on our side, which I'm a massive proponent of it, is we were educated. Both my parents were educated. And so although we had, for a family of 8, a 3-seater couch, we had hundreds of books, and my father was a great music lover and
right.
records. And as I mentioned, he was a bit of a thespian, so he'd walk around quoting stuff that, maybe my hatred of Shakespeare to this day
comes from
that, and my hatred of Irish rebel songs to this day. That was our. But my mother was she was a very avid reader. As I said, she loved other cultures. Sorry.
And were they just naturally intelligent people, or did they come through an education system?
They came through an education system. That's a brilliant question too, because I'm a great lover of genealogy, and I just discovered my father was very estranged from his family, so we knew nothing about our O'Hanlon side of the family. They'd probably had enough of him borrowing money and never paying it back. So it wasn't until after he died that I started to dig a little and found out that his grandfather, my great-grandfather, was a man named Felix O'Hanlon who petitioned and created the first public school which was not paid for. Like actually, any child could go in their area where they lived in Staten Island. Prior to that, it was only religious schools or paid for schools. So the concept of public school was a brand new concept. And the thing that totally in America, and it's still a brand new concept for higher education. Don't even mention, yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Oh, yes. But the thing that is most fascinating to me is that New Zealand has been a front runner in that department because when I was up in Russell, I was reading. Sorry, I'm making that noise. When I was up in Russell, I was reading about how when they first created the first council in Auckland, that one of the things that they did was make public education a must for everybody. Including Maori and Pakeha, you name it, everybody was to go to the public school all at once. Now that was reversed later on when, the second wave, as I always call it, if you look at any colonized nation, the first wave are people who have already been there, who see the nation as a whole. Then you have the second wave. And that's where the malice begins.
Right.
Yeah. But so I thought that was amazing because that was back in the 1800s. And in the United States, it took so much longer. Like people, I think the first public school started in Staten Island by my grandfather was in the 1880s. Like, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. But that's a reality. That's how people, and that shows me and shows, I think, everyone that education is a powerful tool. And the people who have lots and lots and lots of power know that. So they do not want people to be educated. They never do. But anyway.
No, which seems to be the obvious thing.
Yeah.
I don't mean to start getting political here, but
no,
we kind of wandered into that.
You and I can,
yeah.
But we can wander back. We'll wander back. Yeah.
But it's a common. There's a common perception about American politics.
Yes.
Is that
people are stupid?
Yeah.
No.
I mean,
say it, Corey. It's not political. It's a statement of fact.
It's more that. The people who seem to be the least educated are the ones who are easily duped and end up voting against their own best interests.
I know, it's crazy.
It's
that's true, and I'm sure that during the intellectual era of the late 1700s, when they wrote the Constitution, they knew that. I'm sure somebody, Thomas Jefferson or one of those guys, wrote an entire essay about that, about how easy it is to manipulate the common man.
Yeah,
because people. It's just sad. It's just sad that people are happy to settle for, as you say, something against their best interests. But it's been going on since the beginning of time.
I just think for me, it just seems so ingrained in American society or American culture that you've got to be red or you've got to be blue.
I know. Out of 350 million people, you can only find two parties.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
It is nuts.
That people only think one way or the other. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And there's so many political... We won't get into it.
No.
But there's tons of people, if you're listening. There's tons. They just Google it. There's tons. That information readily available. So,
So, getting back into your childhood...
Yes, sorry. So we grew up... Yeah. So I grew up and I was educated in New York City public schools, but I was extraordinarily lucky because New York City has specialized high schools, which are years 14 through 18.
Right.
And they have plenty of them. They're all free admission through audition.
To this day?
They're still there. Yeah.
Wow. And they're publicly funded?
They're publicly funded.
Wow.
And that was done by a beautiful mayor named LaGuardia, who was an Italian immigrant, and he loved arts and culture. And so he created the High School of Performing Arts, the High School of Music and Art, which are now conglomerated. They just happened to be in two different buildings when I was going. The High School of Fashion Design, the High School of Aviation. Yes. Wow. The High School of Art and Design.
Okay,
You know, so Carrie, come on.
I've got a question. So I grew up watching a lot of American TV shows.
Yes,
And
definitely
so-
a truthful and
but one in particular that I think I liked, I'm not sure,
Right.
is was Fame.
yeah, that was my high school. That was based on my high school. So when
So that's based on
Yeah.
LaGuardia.
yes,
is it?
LaGuardia, that's our Fiorello H. LaGuardia.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
the Fame School, it was Alan Parker, the British director. He came to my school in our senior year. So I love the movie. It's full of all my friends. I didn't get into that. They didn't want me.
Were you there at that time?
Yeah,
Around
I
the
just
time?
graduated. I
Oh,
was
my
just
God.
graduating. I remember it was a summer. They ran auditions and stuff. Yeah. So he came. He loved it. He thought it was really brilliant. And I think he's even instigated creating a similar school in the UK somewhere. I'm not sure. I will let my learned UK colleagues comment on that. But that was very exciting because this had existed for 70 years. I mean, amazing people came out of LaGuardia School. Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, all of these
Pacino,
guys.
yeah.
Suzanne Vega, Janice Ian. I can't even remember there. And God
Wesley
knows
Snipes.
how Wesley Snipes. I went to university with him.
Did you?
Yes, he kept to himself. Wesley was he went on to my university, which was the State University of New York at Purchase, which is a very small R&D college that we didn't have grades. We were that cool. We had pass. It was good for people like me. It was pass, honors, or fail. That's what you got. And they had a very, very tight, only 20 students a year in acting. Wesley was one. Stanley Tucci was one.
Stanley Tucci.
Stanley
yeah,
Tucci,
yeah.
who now writes books about cooking.
Oh, he's in so many movies too.
Yes.
I like him.
Yeah,
I like
Stanley
him as an actor.
Tucci is amazing,
Yeah.
and he was always a really fun guy. Really weird people came. That was my university, though. Really weird people came out of that place.
Wow.
We'll come to the university. But the LaGuardia High School of Music and Art, we had been around forever, and and when I auditioned to go to the high school, my guidance counselors on my middle school were like, "You're throwing your life away." Like, what kind of idiot says that? But anyway, they're full of, I think I have we won't get on to guidance counselors. I have my beef about guidance counselors, but it's okay. But anyway, I loved it. I loved that school, and it was amazing. I studied with some of the most brilliant music teachers, and their influence is very strong in the way I run my classes.
Things now, right?
Oh, totally. They were all, these people who were, by and large, almost all of them are African American who had studied classical, studied gospel, studied it all, and due to the fact that they were African American, they could not rise into the higher echelons of professional paid work. And so they became teachers. A big, plus for us. I can, today, this one woman, Marie Del Valle, she was possibly the biggest influence on me in terms of my singing. And she used to say all the time to us, "Keep the round mouth." And any of my students will tell you that is the joke that my students say is, all you ever say is open your mouth and breathe. That's it. That's what I get paid for. Just open your mouth and breathe. There you have it, people.
There's all the secrets you need.
I know. There was some amazing people, they really influenced me in ways that I didn't know. As all teenagers, you never know until you get out into the world and start to realize that you have more tools in your bag than you realized, and now you can use them.
So before you decided to go to LaGuardia, were you a natural performer, or was music quite a large part of your life?
No, it's really interesting because nobody else in my family is has made a career or is interested to the extent that I am in music. And I just think I was an odd kid, to be honest. I was, I was generally very unhappy child because my home life was not good. I mean,
sure.
poverty and
Poverty,
mental illness and alcohol do not make a good mix. And I was very introverted and shy. I couldn't
Were you?
speak. Oh, yes. Oh my God, yes. I couldn't speak to anyone. Like if people talk to me, I used to go into almost like a catatonic state, working out which word to answer. They'd be gone. They'd walked away. And, that happened to me so many times. Like people would even ask me the time. In those days, we didn't have phones. You had to wear a watch. And I remember I would look at my watch and I'd be ready to tell them. And I'd be staring at them and they'd go, it's okay, and leave, like, oh my God, she's nuts. And this was me as a little kid. I spent a lot of time alone. I didn't have friends. I was a slow reader. So I didn't excel in school either. I remember being always at the bottom group with a group of kids who only spoke Spanish. And,
So how, knowing that music includes performance probably,
yes.
So why would you have thought, I need to go and do music? Was music an outlet?
I think when you have... No, I think when you're a weird, nerdy kid and you, by and large, live in a fantasy world, which is what I did, you're unabashed about the things that you really love.
Yeah.
Like, I think, you think about kids who have, like, the entire Yu-Gi-Oh collection, they make no apologies if you ask, and so when the opportunity came up, like, high school people come around and they start talking to the kids in public school about these wonderful schools that can excel. And there are a couple of really good ones, Stuyvesant, a school called Bronx School of Science, Brooklyn Technical, that are for the brainy kids, right?
Right,
and
right.
they're always, and here, more racism. When they see a white kid, they're like, oh, you need to be over here. So, but because, again, I lived in my own little world, I didn't care.
Yeah.
Like, I was on the line with all the, African-American, Hispanic, and Koreans, if it can, the Korean kids were right into the music. Thank you very much.
Wow.
And so, and it just seemed normal to me. I went where I loved. And I also had, in spite of their struggles, both my parents were egalitarians, and my mother was always like, you do what you love, but learn to type, and my father was the same way. Like, nobody questioned it. It was really brilliant. I mean, for that, I really thank them. Nobody questioned that decision of mine. No one said, are you sure? Do you think you should go to that high school without science? I mean, or they knew. They looked at me and said, she hasn't got a scientific brain in her body. No hope. Go, but actually, fairly, my parents, they just didn't question. And I was a very independent kid, because when you come from a large family and from very little means, especially an Irish background family, we're brutal. They're sarcasm like you wouldn't believe. So also, I just went to the audition on my own. I remember being there as a 14-year-old, and everybody had their parents, and I was there on my own. And and I thought, oh, were we supposed to bring our parents? But it was also because my school was up in the middle of Harlem, and there was that aspect that it's supposed to, it was. Harlem was a dangerous place, but to me it was just a place.
Yeah.
Because where I lived was a very dangerous place. And so, I remember being up there and doing my audition and just loving it and thinking, I was like that annoying kid in the audition where they had to get the cane to get her out, because I'm like, do you want to hear another song? No, thank you. And, but I think there's a plus when you live in that kind of own world. So I stayed super shy till I was about 16, and then I discovered acting. And that was because we had a wonderful program with that high school where we got free tickets to Broadway shows.
Wow.
And that was like, excuse me. That was
no,
like
you can swear. That's fine.
That was like fucking eye-opener. Like, I remember the first show that I went to was of Liza Minnelli. It was called Liza with a Z.
Yeah.
Here it would have been called Liza with a Z, but but I mean, I hardly remember her so much as I remember the lights, and I remember the moving lights. Like, they had lights on the ceiling that could move forward, and I remember the stage and the set, and there was it was like a mind explosion for me, and I was like, wow. There's more to this world than meets the eye. And at that point, I decided I wanted to go into acting.
Right.
And so it was a funny thing because I was 16 and I thought, well, if you're this shy, you're never going to get into acting. You're going to have to start talking to people.
You're right.
And I did. I started talking to people about the stupidest things. I just made myself, like, if I met you, I'd be like, I like your vest. It's just like stupid shit. And you'd be like, I'd wear this every day. Okay. It just was like, just out there stuff. But also.
But were you changing as a person anyway?
Yes.
Was this sort of a natural?
Yeah, I was getting sick. I think I was getting sick of being overlooked, as it were.
Right.
In every aspect. I'm number 3 in my family. I have 3 sisters. Sorry, there's 4 of us. 3 sisters. If it can be imagined, there are 3 other duplicates of this.
Right.
And very similar, different aspects, but we all have, we all talk a lot. And if this other thing can be believed too, I am the one who probably talks the least. Now, yes.
Oh,
yes.
my God.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
That's what people say. Oh, my God. So there was an aspect at home of hating being overlooked. I was becoming grossly aware of the fact that I felt inhibited by all manner of things. Not money, interestingly enough. Like, I didn't have the sense. One of my sisters always hated being poor. And she worked so hard she wanted status. She wanted
right.
label brands and da-da-da-da. Those sort of things didn't matter to me so much as I just felt like I was always, it was so much more that I wanted to express, and I didn't know how. And I wasn't a good singer when I went to my high school. So that was a plus because I worked so hard. Like, I would come home from school and I would literally spend 3 to 4 hours in my room singing over phrases, over singers like Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, people like that, trying to figure out how they did what they did with their voices. And then working on the piano until my mother told me I had to stop and eat dinner. And so I think that helps sometimes. It helps if you are the sort of person who goes, right, I want this, so. Sorry.
I've got just a question on that. Just something I've always personally wanted to know, just about voices in general.
Yes,
so
please.
in your experience, can a person with an average voice be trained to be a really good singer?
I think so. I think I have an average voice. Everywhere I went definitely, because everywhere I went in terms of my training at home, my teachers were, some of them lovely, some of them not. And I was told, first of all, in terms of classical singing, there was no way I'd ever be able to compete because I have too small a voice. And I was told in my contemporary musical theater classes, which was, in that time they called it contemporary, that I was, I was too sloppy with my voice. I wasn't clear on the pitch, which is what they look for there. I personally can't stand, with a vengeance, musical theater singing in the traditional way, that kind of nasally, way of singing. I cannot stand it. I think it's just abhorrent. And of course, they penalized me for that. They didn't like that. And then, of course, when I tried to go into gospel, they told me I was too white.
Yeah, of course.
And so,
of course.
I couldn't get that sound either. I didn't have the depth in my voice as a young white girl, I found my spot in Celtic singing, but it wasn't. There wasn't a lot of call for that. But I worked so I worked really hard, and I think that's I think I've pushed my voice to the best it can be, and I think it's an average voice. It's not Adele. It's not Whitney Houston. I wasn't given, and some of the people I went to school with, oh my God, these girls, they were, my biggest inspiration was a friend of mine called Monica de Souza. Now that woman had a voice that when she opened her mouth, everybody just stopped, like Alicia Keys. They just stop and listen because it's so insanely beautiful. You can't overlook it. I don't have that. I think, I've really analyzed it and cultivated it. And that's what I think that's what I actually see when I talk to people. If you've got a voice, if you speak, you can sing.
Yeah,
it's
of course.
up to
I agree.
You. Whether you do it well, whether you take it to the further, that's up to you. It's like dancing,
Yeah.
You have 2 feet, you can do it.
Yeah.
Whether you'll ever do it extremely good like Anna Stewart, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, I do.
Okay. So you stayed at LaGuardia for
4 years.
4 years?
Yeah, and you
wow.
graduate.
You did the whole lot?
Yeah, so it's a brilliant school. You have to do the whole lot. That's the thing about the United States. You can't leave early. You either have a diploma after 4 years or nothing. Yeah, so that's where the high school dropout term is coined.
Right. That's why it's such a big deal to be a dropout.
That's why it's such a big deal to be a dropout. Because if you don't complete everything, you get nothing.
You get nothing,
That's
right.
the United States all up.
It's
all or nothing all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had to do the 4 years, and we had to do 4 hours of music on top of our 4 years of English. 3
So they
years
taught
of math.
you
They taught you everything
the
you had
standard
to.
subjects.
Yes, all those core subjects.
Just like Fame.
Just like Fame.
Just
you
like
have
the TV
to do
show
it.
Fame.
Yeah. Now they've changed it now, and there's controversy because now they're saying that the kids can stay if they get their academics, but they let their music fall. That was never the case. Like, we had to keep up in both areas.
Right.
But I don't know why they've changed it. They've changed the focus, and I think that's going to be detrimental because I think there were a lot of kids in our school who were so amazing musically, and they kept up their music because they needed to stay at the school. So I think the reputation might slide. I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking out of term. I'll be crucified by somebody who listens to your podcast in New York City. I don't agree with that, Corey, and I'll tell you why. So after that, yes, I went to a very liberal arts college that had a predominantly homosexual, gay, lesbian, transsexual population, because that's the art world.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
baby.
Okay, that makes sense.
I wanted to be an actor badly.
Right.
And I actually won an award for acting at my Fame school.
Really?
Yes, because again, I lived in if you want to be an actor, live in a fantasy world. It's great.
Yeah.
What had happened is we had to do monologues. It was like a final, I took a drama class, and at the end, our marking was based on a monologue. We had to read a biography. I still think it's a great exercise. You read a biography and you had to write a monologue and act it out of a famous person or of somebody. Anyway, it didn't have to be famous. It just had to be somebody's biography. I read Judy Garland. I was very taken by her because she's a freak, just like me.
Yeah.
But she was also painfully shy in reality, and so she
Really?
Yes. Oh, so shy. She was, that's
crazy.
Yes, I know, which was what led to all her pills and her alcohol. But one thing she used to do is she'd do her interviews in clown face because she was so shy. She didn't want anybody to really look at her and scrutinize her. So I went during lunch before our performance consulting no one, and went into the bathroom and I'd practiced and put on clown face and came to my class. Now, if I were genius, that would be great because that would show genius. But I was not. I was just nuts. And I was just like, I want to do it. And so,
it's a fine line between genius and crazy, I suppose.
I think my teacher was very taken aback because she'd never really heard anything. And she was like, and she kept asking me who I was. This is Margaret. I'm like, yes. And so I did. And I'd written the monologue and did the monologue and did everything and broke down and cried. And everybody thought that was genius. Again, indulgent, totally indulgent by a person living in their fantasy world. But it propelled me forward into the honors class.
Wow, really?
Yes, and I kept excelling in my acting, and I loved it. And then I won the award at the school, and that was my great claim to fame. And then I wanted to go onto acting school at Purchase, and I wasn't accepted in the acting department. So I went into the liberal arts department, and then I discovered social sciences. And that's where the political side of me appears.
Okay.
Yes, because I studied political science and social science. In fact, that's where I have my degree in criminology. Yeah.
You have a degree in criminology?
I have a fucking degree in criminology.
This is not the Margaret we know.
I have a degree in criminology. I loved university so much. I went for 5 years until Reagan cut all my funding. I still to this day, if I see the man,
those Republicans
spit on his grave. Totally, really, it created the divide you see in America now. He is to blame for everything. Trump is an idiot, but Reagan is the mastermind.
Yeah.
So yes, so I stayed at that school. I studied documentary film. I went away from acting, and I studied documentary film. I actually did a whole film called Black, White, and Checkered, and it's about racism in America and how people of mixed race have to choose. It's in
this
the library.
This is a documentary,
it's a
is
documentary film in the Library of Purchase. Yeah, if anybody ever,
Is it on YouTube?
No.
You don't want it to be on YouTube?
No, I don't have access. The university owns it.
So
right. It was my thesis, and they have the copy. And these are the days of film, so they have the master.
8mm.
It's 8mm sitting in a vault somewhere in upstate New York, gathering dust, probably chewed by rats today. It's not a great film. The subjects were lovely people and very wonderful to open up their world to me. But that was what I studied, and I was always very political, and even in that. And here's another fact that is going to make you laugh, is that I was the valedictorian at my graduation in Purchase. And I got a little bit, the valedictorian is the speaker at the end, at the graduation. And it was voted on by the students. So they had voted me. And yes. And I made a political speech.
Whoa, did you?
Yes, I did. I'm going to tell you another thing that's going to make you understand.
Did you get booed off the stage?
No, I got clapped off.
Wow.
Which was very sweet. But after that, they changed the policy. And they never let the students vote the person again. And that's true. Dee Molinari, the dean, I have a lot to say about her, but yes, yeah. So this was that was an interesting part of my career, but also my biggest claim to fame, which I didn't realize at the time, was I started a movement that managed to get a bill. I pulled together a bill. We took it to Congress, which managed an actual bill, a change to law, a change to policy, and that was to allow students to vote. So in the United States, you have to vote only in your own district, and you have to do it in person. Yeah. So if you happen to be gone that day, or in hospital, or in jail, very convenient, you cannot vote, okay? Or up until 1982, which when I was awakened, I think 81 actually, I discovered that you could not vote. After Reagan became president in 80, I was so aware of the fact that because I go to university in September out of my home state or out of my home district, and I'm in university in November, and I can vote.
That's
but
crazy.
I'm 18 and able. Yes, I know. So I went to Washington. Had a very profound effect on me. Washington, D.C. First time I ever saw the Wall, which is like a giant tombstone to all the 500,000 men who died and women who died in Vietnam. But I went to change that law, and we did. I don't know how we changed it. You couldn't do that today.
You got it
changed. Yes. Now, American students can vote in their district, from their university.
Wherever they're going to school.
Absolutely. So
I mean, it's a no-brainer, really, if you
Yeah.
think about it. But
it is a no-brainer.
but
But it's incredible to me. I think because we were coming on the fringe of the liberal 70s, it went. It's a national law. It went through. You
Wow.
can do it. So it's amazing to me that it happened. I didn't understand.
That's a claim to fame.
It is.
Right there.
I'm very proud of that. I was part of that. I didn't do it single-handedly. I actually went and got a group of students and then joined a
Like-minded
local
people?
movement. Yeah,
Yeah.
like-minded student unions from all the different universities. But it was an amazing day to go to Washington and experience that.
Did you get much resistance
None.
in Washington?
No, none. You know, that's what I mean. It was the year of the liberal. I think when you have a liberal majority, they understand that your 18 to 25-year-olds are going to have. They're not going to be battered down, and they're also university students, so they're forward-thinking people. You know, there's a lot in the voter suppression laws after those days, after the days of the great liberalism, as I call it, were fast and furious. So do look out, like we're going through. New Zealand is very, I think we have a government that's very enlightened comparatively at the moment.
I also think there's a better chance in this country for individual citizens to exact change if we need to, or to put political pressure.
Because we're small and
Yeah,
you
we're
see
small.
each other.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
your day of reckoning is only around the corner.
Absolutely. If you spend too much on your party credit card,
Yeah.
the public knows all about it, and you're out.
I know. Bring back Simon, I say.
So
he seems like a breath of fresh air.
and
Not ignore the fact that this is a country grown rich by enslaving people for 400 years.
Yeah.
You can't overlook it. That's the only reason that country is as rich as it is. And that is why you have a Senate and you have a House of Representatives. You do not need a Senate. And that is also why you have such a strong executive power, which is kind of like a king.
do you think they'll get to fascism first?
They are.
I mean,
I should be wearing. I knew I forgot something. I forgot my black belt. The hypocrisy is staggering.
You can't take a knee in protest.
See, what is that?
That hurts
Who does that
Republican
hurt?
feelings.
Yes.
But you're
Because-
allowed to storm your own capital with guns and
that's right.
and kill
That's right.
police officers, and they
Because it's a screwed system.
Yeah,
Because
true,
truly,
true. It is a
truly,
screwed system.
You have a
Yeah.
popular vote, which the
Yeah.
Republicans haven't won for 40 years.
Yeah.
And you have the electoral vote.
yeah.
House of Lords, House of Commons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's really that.
Okay, so we're going to dig ourselves out of the political hole for a little bit. No, don't be sorry, because I love it too. It's just...
But it shouldn't... Sorry, one more thing. It shouldn't
Yeah, sure.
even be both parties. I think with the Bernie Sanders movement showed how corrupt the Democratic Party was right there. And that's how it all happened. It
Yeah.
was perfect. Perfect storm. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, sorry. Out. Let's talk about something else.
That's okay.
Sorry, that's unfortunately where my degree lies. That's why. That explains a lot for everyone. If I have a degree in criminology, you can
I'm
understand.
fascinated by the American political system only because...
Kiwis who, my dear husband, for me to explain it to him, he's like, he just goes.
Oh no, there's plenty of
God,
New Zealanders who support people like Donald Donald
I know,
Trump
what
and
is
what they
that
stand
about?
for.
He doesn't even know where you live. He can't even pick because that means you can exploit other people.
Yeah, so you can just do
know.
what you want, and you can wreck everything and just
Yeah.
go do it unabashed. And that,
Tourism goes,
Well,
and
and
then
then-
government should
then
come
the government
in.
has to bail everybody out.
Where
and
is
they,
the government?
And they end
You
up
know.
bailing out corporations first. So
Yes.
I mean, anyway, let's dig. We got to get out of
Yeah,
this.
come on.
Political
We're
hole.
out. Let's talk about back to New York City and becoming. And so I didn't become an actress.
So you did your
Yeah.
your degree.
Yes, I wanted to go in film after that. I gave up music. Because I believed all the things that people told me about how small my voice was and how this and how that. And I gave it up for 7 years, which was
You gave up music for 7
I
years?
gave up music for 7 years.
From when you went to
From the time I was
college?
18 till the time I was 25.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I didn't expel myself from university until I was 22.
Expelled myself. That's a good way to put
And then
it.
I tried to work in New York City in film. I found the industry insane. To be fair, I never managed to work my way up to working on a major motion picture because you start out as a PA and I learned really quickly that in any kind of creative field, there are those that administrate and then there are those that create. And if you start out in the administration line, they're never going to let go of you because nobody wants to do that work. So, and that, if you're listening, people who are working here, even in, amateur dramatics and community theaters, if you're the administrator, they do not want to let you on the other side. Because it's harder to find administrators than there is to find film directors. And I wanted to direct. I wanted to write. I wrote a few screenplays and I realized that was never going to happen if I kept buying people coffee and doing doing rehearsal schedules. I enjoyed making rehearsal schedules. I enjoyed doing, stuff like that. But it was usurping all my energy. So I actually had a bit of a meltdown,
Okay.
I did. I can tell you the day to this. I sat up in bed. I remember waking up. I had like 7:30, the alarm, and I was going to get on a train and go to work. And it takes an hour commute. And I remember sitting up in bed and going, I can't do this every day for the rest of my life. I have to get out of here.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's not a meltdown, though, I don't think.
No,
That's
you're right. I had my bits
an
about me.
epiphany.
You're right.
Yeah.
I don't think you can melt down in New York. There's not enough time, and you can't. Like if you melt down, man, you're toast. You go so far down. So, you got to have your plan B. Like, okay, where is that? And I decided my plan B was to get out of there, and I wanted to go. I thought I'm just going to go to Europe. I've got to go to Europe. And the dollar was so high, like you 10 francs to a dollar, 2 pounds to a dollar. So you could.
2 pounds to a dollar?
2 pounds to a dollar.
Wow.
1985, the glory years. The glory years. Thatcher
Wow,
years.
the Reagan years, I guess.
Yeah. But, but friggin' hell, America was trampling all over everybody else. So, put your money in your pocket and go. And so I went to Europe, and I loved it. I loved just traveling with no direction. That's what I did.
Did you go by yourself?
Went by myself. Yeah, I don't think it occurred to me to. I think also people were crazy into work. Like my friends, I saw them become incredible capitalists really fast. The 80s were all about yuppieism.
I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, everybody was making money and loving it.
Yep.
And I was
Yep.
like, nah, I'm going to Europe. And I found my people in Europe. I
Thespians, or do you mean
people
other
who
travelers?
who could, yes, other travelers, definitely, definitely, and people who were thinking outside the square.
Yeah, right.
And I was also incredibly stupid. I was a really stupid American, like stupider than
Oh, right. You mean like ignorant, didn't know the world?
Ignorant to the max.
Right.
And when I met people from Australia and New Zealand, I was that absolute typical American who goes, where the fuck is that? And you're like trying to find a map out of the corner of your eye because you're like, what the fuck? You know, you're thinking, well, it must be somewhere, Austria, New Zealand. Maybe it's just down by Turkey. And also, you know, we were kept ignorant because in the 80s on an American passport, there were hundreds of places you couldn't go. First of all, you couldn't go east of the Iron Curtain. I couldn't go to Poland, Czech, what is now Czech Republic. It's Czechoslovakia. Nowhere in the Soviet Union. You couldn't even go to Berlin without an escort and a permit and a fixed amount of time. You couldn't go to any Muslim country because we were so entrenched in bed with Israel. It meant every Arab nation, Malaysia, Burma, couldn't go there. You weren't going. You weren't even going into parts of Turkey. If you went in, I mean, I don't know if I could go into Turkey at that point. There were times where you couldn't. So you not parts of East Africa, no way. You know, there were plenty of places that you were not going with an American passport. And you believed it. You believed everybody wanted to kill you, and they did. They would have, you know. That's where I started to become very Canadian. I became Canadian real fast.
Great.
Real fast, eh?
Good. Yeah.
Real fast. And you know, I didn't go as far as a maple leaf on my rucksack, but you know. You know, I was Canadian when I was in the UK, and then I was English when I was in Europe.
Wow.
That made a big fat difference. And I met a wonderful Australian man, and he said to me, Margaret, you know, wherever you go, be English, because the English have completely raped the world, and everyone thinks that they are the authority. And it worked. It fucking worked, which was terrible, but it did. And even here, people say to me, oh, what is that accent? You sound Irish. I'm like, do I now? I don't sound Irish. I don't sound anything. I don't sound Irish at all. You know, so,
oh, that sounds fantastic.
You know, it's ridiculous.
That's quite
anyway,
funny.
Yeah, Europe was brilliant. And I ended up finding a friend in Denmark and living there for a couple of months, maybe 2 months, until it got cold. Fuck, it's cold up there. And I was like,
in Denmark?
What the hell am I doing in Denmark?
Oh,
yeah,
that's up in
that's
Scandinavia.
Up Scandinavia.
Right.
It's fucking cold.
Yeah.
Like it's cold in New York, but it's fucking cold. And it was only September, and the temperatures were down below zero, and I didn't have the right clothing. And so, after about 4 months, I just ended up back in New York. But my mind was changed.
Right.
And I became a temp. That's where typing, thank you, Mum, came in handy.
Right.
Yeah.
So you would just temp to make some money.
Yes, and lo and behold, it happened to coincide when they developed these things called word processors.
Oh, yeah.
Word processors.
Right.
There were two varieties. There was Microsoft Word
yeah.
and Wang.
Oh, and Wang. Far out. That's old.
Remember Wang?
Yeah.
Well, it seemed that I had an aptitude for learning these machines, and these poor old Gladyses, which is what we called them, who were like 60 and 70 with their chains and their thing. I don't know I can't just, do you have a typewriter? Because I can't do, I don't, what is this? And I mean, I don't even know how to make it move. And, you know, and they couldn't do it. And so it was great because people paid a lot of money for that. So that's where I just jumped from job to job, going in and cleaning up the messes that the Gladyses made and being paid what I thought was a phenomenal amount of money, and was for Americans, $21 an hour. So I put it all in the bank because I was like, right. Because I'd met Australians and I'd met New Zealanders, and I thought, I'm going there. I am so going there. You know, Tahiti, all these places I never thought about. I was like, I'm going there. And so for 4 years I worked and saved money. And because this is a beautiful thing, and I'm sure that anybody listening, and you know this too, when you make a life change, it's like, fuck, the universe goes, oh, okay,
opens.
fine, I'll show you what I had in store for you, but
Yeah.
you don't want it now. And, and I ended up reconnecting with an old friend who was a piano player who wrote his own songs, and he happened to be performing in the Village in New York, and he said, Margaret, he talks like this. His name is Peter DeZoza. He's the brother of the very extremely talented sister, and he talks like a mafioso. Came from Queens, and he said, Margaret, you gotta join me. Come on, you can. I want you to sing these songs. Come on, you talk. You're very funny. Come on, and so we started doing comedy music shows. Down in the Village. And again, as I say, just when I'm leaving, I started to get people, bookings. But I was leaving. I was determined. And, and that happens. I think I have so many students who come and announce to me that they've decided they're going to move to Australia, and suddenly the doors open like that.
Right.
It's so weird, but it's so archetypical that when you decide you're going to move on, that suddenly everything is like, oh no, wait here, here's the apartment you wanted, and that's kind of what my last few years in New York were like. They were just magical. They were so fantastic. I was doing what I wanted to do. I was temping. I had time off. I was, also doing part-time work for a transatlantic arts and cultural magazine called Ricochet. Was way ahead of its time. It folded. It bankrupted. Excuse me. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you get, so that, I loved my life. I loved it. I would go to Tower Records, which was a big mega record shop, and that was just when 12 inches were being released. I bought my first one, was called Why You Treat Me So Bad. It was great. It was a big remix that went on for days. And there was also an underground group that started, that pressed their vinyl in their basement. A group called Strafe. The record was Set It Off, and man, that was hard to come by. It came in a white, no label, a white cover, but then years later someone sampled it. It said, set it off on the left wall, set it off on the right, set it off, set it off, set it off. We thought that was amazing. It was so big, so innovative. I could probably sell it now on eBay, but I won't, Corey, no. And, so anyway, yeah, so those were my days before I left New York and came down here.
So how did you end up here? So what pathway did you take to finally get to New Zealand? My Australian man who I had met, who made such an impact on me, had seeded Australia in my mind, and I really wanted to go to Australia. That New Zealand, yeah, okay, whatever, but Australia was like the place. And everything about Australia was just like a movie, koalas and trees. Koalas.
Yeah, well, I love animals, and I still love Australia for its weird, wacky platypus. I mean, what is that?
Yeah.
And I always think that was like the days when the gods were on acid. And someone's going, no, put a beak, it's going to be great. No, trust me, it's going to be amazing. And so it was Australia that I had in mind. And I went into the travel agent. I wanted the cheapest ticket possible. And this truly happens. This is so freaky. And the woman said, oh, well, we have a ticket. UTA, United Tahitian Airlines, they folded already. It's me. Every place I go, they go out of business. But, no, they had a ticket that was, you had to have a round trip. I didn't want to go round trip. So you had to have an ongoing ticket. And they had one through United Tahitian Airlines, which literally must have bought their planes from, a secondhand, because you could see where they were joined on the ground. They didn't even bother carpet it over. When you're flying, it's going, you had to do Tahiti, Auckland, Noumea, then Sydney, then Jakarta, then Kuala Lumpur, and then Bangkok. So that looked great. I was thrilled with that, but I didn't have enough money, to sustain myself. And you have to prove that you have money as well.
Yeah.
So I said to the woman, "Is there any way I can miss out some stops?" And she said, "Well, you could go from Papeete straight to Sydney, but and skip out Noumea and Auckland." And I said, "Okay." And she literally grabbed my arm and she said, "But you're making a mistake." And that was fucking freaky, because first of all, nobody touches anyone in New York. And this woman touched me. My first reaction was like, "I'm going to hit you in the face if you don't let go of my arm." And then I thought, that's just so weird. And she almost had that same reaction. She jumped back. She goes, "I mean, I just went there with my boyfriend and it's such a beautiful place. You don't want to miss New Zealand." And it was weird. It was like I kind of knew, I thought, okay. And I thought in my head, it's like divine intervention. You got to do this. And I went, fine, put me down. And a week in the north, a week in the South Island, whatever. And when I got here, I remember getting to Auckland and getting to the youth hostel, and there was this couple there. They were from Sweden, and they had just been traveling for a month, and they said that they wanted to stay. They were going to look at residency, and I thought that was freaky. What? You don't give up your what? What about your country? And they were talking about buying. They'd been to Northland, and they'd seen the price of land. Yeah. If only we'd known. Yeah. And and they were talking about buying plot and living off the grid. And I was like, wow, that's kind of fucking freaky, but whatever. And the guy, he said to me, "Do you know what I think?" And I went, "No." And he said, "I think I'm going to come back here in a year and you're going to still be here." And I thought, whatever, mate. Well, not mate at the time.
Yeah.
Whatever, asshole. And anyway, the first thing I did, I hooked up with a Canadian woman, and we hitched out to the Coromandel. And I was like, wow, I'd never seen the earth this way. It was just too beautiful and too perfect for words. It blew my mind. It seriously blew my mind going up. I remember we were traveling Thames across to Whitianga.
Right, and over that way. Yeah.
You're obligatorily talking to your driver. And I just stopped mid-sentence, and my mouth was just like, and he started chuckling away. And he goes, ha, ha, ha. "Oh, yeah, the scenery. Ha, ha, ha." And I just didn't have any words. I just did not have any words. And I was also taken by the fact that it was rolling hills after rolling hills after beautiful world without 100,000 fucking people
around.
Yeah. And I was like, wow. And then the next day I went out to Hot Water Beach, and there was no one there at that time. And I was there with a German guy. We pooled our resources and went out there. And I said to him, "I don't think we should be here." And he goes, "What? Why? Why don't you think so?" And I said, "Because I think there's no one on this beach. It's probably polluted." And he went, "You are so strange, but you are American." Okay, yes. Yes.
So now we got to a point where you made it to, I think you made it to Auckland, and you went around.
To Auckland, and I decided on my trip to Whitianga and my consequent, I didn't die of nuclear fallout by being at Hot Water Beach, which was just such an extraordinary. I remember it today, lying in that thermal water and then the cool water coming over, and again not knowing that our planet had that to offer. Unfortunately, being in New York City and then only ever visiting other cities and maybe a little bit of countryside in European countries, overpopulated places, I had no idea. I'd never been out west. As a true New Yorker, I just didn't think it was real. Terrified of the American Midwest, terrified of the people who lived there. And didn't understand there was no subway. How the hell was I going to get around? So, anyway, yeah. And also, I think it was just also time. Like I just was like, I wanted to get out of America all up. So I hadn't experienced any of those natural phenomena that are absolutely, I mean, the American Midwest is dripping with beautiful, natural earth phenomenon. But I didn't experience it. And I experienced it here. And it changed my course. I decided that being in the North Island for a week was just a joke because I spent 4 days in the Coromandel. And I thought, well, I'm not going to go back to Auckland and get on a plane. So I just canceled my ticket and extended it. And I thought, I'm not going to go back to Auckland full stop. I'm going to keep hitching. And I spent a lot of time in the Coromandel, still one of my favorite places, and went to Thames. At that time, there were these beautiful people, ambassadors to New Zealand, they called themselves. These older people in Thames at the museum. I went to the museum, and these lovely older people were sitting there chatting, and they offered to take me back to their house and have some lemon biscuits and tea. I was terrified. I thought these people are going to kill me. They're mass murderers. Can't believe it's in broad daylight like this. But there was this lovely Swiss girl who was there on the day, and she said, "Oh, it sounds delightful. Let's do it." So I was still terrified as I walk into this woman's house and she locks the door. And it wasn't locked at all. I mean, she just shut it. And then she just told me about the area. And after I calmed down and realized that the biscuits weren't laced with cyanide, this is true. I was still very citified. I was like, I don't trust you. I don't even know you. Who the hell are you? Who invites you to their house? That's fucking weird. And
strange Kiwis, I tell you.
She was lovely, and she told me all about the area and that it was a gold mining town, and now it was not so. For the last few years, Thames had been really impoverished, and but they had a strong tradition. And she loved them. My name was O'Hanlon. She said there were lots of we had a lot of Irish people here at one time, and And then I went on my merry way, and I found out about things that were just stupid things that you don't think about as an American, but they tell you, like they had in the museum a commode, and I'm like, what's that? And they start all laughing, and they go, well, that's a commode, dear. And I'm like, what's a commode? And they're like, you put that in your bedroom. And I'm like, well, okay, it looks like a seat, and showed me that there's a pot in the below it, and I still wasn't catching on. And they had to really spell it out for me, and I was like, well, why don't you just go to the toilet? And like, even more laughter. Well, it's outside, and you might not want to. I was like, well, why don't you put it inside? I mean, hello, people. It was just such a lack of understanding, but it was beautiful. It was really beautiful, and it was really real. And honesty boxes blew my mind. I always gave them too much money. I love you. Take it. And just those sort of things, roadside places where they have strawberries and lots of them, and they have $5 or whatever it was. I wouldn't even think it was $5 a pound. It was probably $2. And I'm thinking, but I could put in $2 and take them all. And then when you realize you have the freedom to do that, you think, well, but why would I?
Yeah.
Because that's just why.
Because you're not the 5%. That's why.
Yeah.
You're not that bad person.
But also because also you also realize strawberries are plentiful. There's enough for everyone. Mm-hmm. So you go, no, I'll take what only is mine. All that I can eat. That's it. So it's real change in thinking.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, when you think about people who are impoverished and then they become greedy, that's why. And you learn, just take what you need.
Yeah.
And that's a big lesson when you you never have what you need. But, when you are in a nurturing place where people are actually kind, you go, okay, I'm not going to get killed by this lovely little woman and her lemon biscuits. Lemon biscuits are really quite nice, and so, so I just then hitched down the North Island, loved every minute of it, loved everything I saw. I've discovered Dannevirke. Is it Dannevirke? Dannevirke.
Yes.
What a weird little town. I loved it because they've got like this kind of Scandinavian Dutchy influence in Dannevirke. And
that's right.
okay, you know.
Oh, wow.
And then Napier, and it was all Art Deco.
Art
Deco,
Deco.
which is not big in the United States. Art Deco to that extent. And at that point, I was with an American girl. She kept saying, "Oh my God, I want to buy everything and sell it back home. You don't know how much you'd get on eBay for this." And, it's like, or whatever it was. It wasn't eBay at the time. It was, just the fact that it was antiques. And, and then got to Wellington and came across to the South Island. The South Island was like a mind blow. There was no one here, Got on the road like North Island, nothing came for days.
Yeah.
South Island to me is memories of walking and walking and walking, and then finally getting in a car and them going, "Where are you going?" And I'm going, "I don't care. I don't care where I'm going. Where are you going? I'm just going wherever you're going." Because you're the first car I've seen today and yesterday. And maybe the day before. I've lost count, And so it was, and Kaikoura was, Kaikoura is so different now because of the earthquake. But at the time, I thought it was such a, Kaikoura was not, they hadn't caught on about the tourism. So there was none of the whale watching. There was little penguins. This is 88. This was in 1988. And the seals were everywhere. And the people were just, that's what I just absolutely loved about New Zealand at that time, is that they hadn't monopolized, if you will, on everything.
Yeah.
Even when people told me that Queenstown was a circus, I wanted to go to Queenstown. I don't know why. I know why. I forgot. Okay, Queenstown, because I'd met all these people traveling, and when you were traveling in the early 80s in New Zealand, there was only a handful of backpackers, so everybody went to the same spots, and everybody hitched. As you know, there was no public transportation, and so we all hitched, and we would all meet up, and the people I met in Taupo, I missed in Wellington, but there they were in Nelson,
right?
And so we made a plan. We had such good, there was a big crack and a good rapport, and we made a plan. We'd all meet in Queenstown on Christmas because we were all backpackers and nobody was home, and we wanted to meet in Queenstown on Christmas. So that's where so I got to Dunedin, very bleak, very, lots of church. I remember Dunedin was a lot of
and cold.
Yes, cold, gray, damp church bells. That's my impression of. That was my impression of Dunedin, but somehow felt closer to New Year's Eve, like to Christmas.
Right.
So I thought in the cathedral they did do some carols. That was interesting. And off I went. And not that I'm religious, but I love the kind of camaraderie that Christmas brings, and carol singing, and I'm all about the singing. And so I get over to Queenstown, and it's not bleak. It's happy. And there's tons of wonderful, and everybody's in a good mood. I hadn't realized that your summer holidays and Christmas and New Year's all become one big, blur of 3 weeks, because we don't have that,
Yeah.
We have Christmas off. We don't have Christmas Eve off. We don't have Boxing Day. So Christmas is a day.
Yeah.
And summer holidays, you can, if people do take their holidays in summer, but it's 2 weeks back to work. And, so this idea that you'd have Christmas and then you'd just chill for 3 weeks, and you'd have outdoor. I mean, I love the fact that we have New Year's Eve in the summer. It's the best time. Yeah. Because you can stay up all night. Yeah. And it's beautiful. But anyway, at that point, I was kind of missing Christmas. And I thought I met up with all our people, and I was like, oh, yeah, but I'm feeling like I really want Christmas. So I might go back to Dunedin. Well, no, you're not going back to Dunedin, because Intercity will not go back to Dunedin
right.
on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
No. And if you do want to go back, it'll happen on the 2nd of January. And I was like, what? And they're like staring at me like,
welcome to the small New Zealand.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And they were pretty chuffed that they were going to run on the 2nd of January. They're like, oh, well, I mean, we used to not run till the 21st. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I'm here. So, and so then my life changed in Queenstown, because this again is this cray, grab your arm and say you're making a mistake, but Cinderella story is that I went out to dinner with my Canadian girlfriend that I was traveling with. I'm now back to a Canadian, and it was a Mexican restaurant. And now I don't know what it is. It's above Walk-In Wardrobe. It might be back to being a Mexican restaurant. It's the one in that alleyway. It was called Saguaros.
Is it
and then
the
I think
one
it
that-
became Sombreros.
Yeah, okay, I know.
And now
the
it
one.
might be, I don't know, Vietnamese or something else.
Yeah, because it's closed as a Mexican restaurant now.
Yes.
Just recently.
Yes, just
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah.
So it's flipped over like every
I know the
poor,
one. Yeah.
Yes, every poor business in Queenstown. And I went up there. There was nobody really in the place. It was myself and Kathy, my Canadian girlfriend, and a guy playing guitar on stage. And I had a tequila because I was going to Dunedin. And Kathy had a couple of tequilas, but she's Canadian, so friggin' hell. She needs another 8. I'm a New Yorker, 1. And, go on. And the proprietor came over to talk to us. She was an American lady. And so she found out Kathy was Canadian, I was American. And she's like, oh, that's so oh, no, I came here in the 1970s. Came here with my husband, and we started this business, and he's left, and da, da, da. And she said, what did you do back in the States? And Kathy, who was roaring drunk, who knew that I'd sung in the village, and I'd probably entertained them a bit in the youth.
Of course.
She's a singer from New York, I didn't get the Canadian accent right. Sorry. Kathy somehow came
New
from
York
Aussie.
accent.
Yeah, New York. Yeah, no, yeah. Well, so this lady goes, "Oh, really? Oh, well, she should get up and sing a song." And I was, usually I'm like, "Oh no, I'm." But this time I was like, "Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now you have a fucking sing a song." Get up, and the guy who was playing, I think I asked him. He didn't know anything I knew, but he knew it's summertime. Like there was like the Kiwi top 10, and summertime was on it. Now our knowledge of summertime was that it was from a politically wrong Broadway show written by Gershwin. And and so therefore, nobody sang Summertime.
Really?
No, not really.
Wow.
No. And of course he started playing. I mean, Janis Joplin recorded it, and when she recorded it in the way that she felt portrayed the sentiment, because it's from a Porgy and Bess, which has since been re-owned and been done in a African-American production since then. But at the time, my versions of Summertime were ever, and that kind of thing. And so I was like, why do you want to do that? But anyway, he started playing it in the Janis Joplin style, so I was like, fine, I'll sing it. And I just sang it, and I didn't think about it. I was having probably a little bit of fun with the key, because it was probably down in a man's key. And this guy walked up to me, and he is he was Jeff Turner, a fellow named Jeff Turner who passed away, from the Turner family that used to live here, or do. They have somewhere up in Skippers or something. And he at that time owned what is now Candies, I think, and it was the Dolphin Club. Could be something else. It could be Fear Factor now. It might be Fear Factor, and I'm not sure. But it was up the stairs on Shotover Street, and it was supposed to be a piano bar called the Dolphin Club. And he said to me, "What are you doing on New Year's Eve?" And I thought, "Who the hell are you? What is this?" And he literally took out a $100 bill, which was like, oh my God, Kiwi. And he said to me, "I want you to come and sing at my club." He was totally pissed too. Don't worry. Everybody was pissed. It was Christmas Eve, early in the evening. And I was like, fine, that's great, And he turned to the guy who was playing as well, and he said, You'll come and play for her, won't you, Robin? No. The guy was thrilled not. He was like, I don't want to play with this stupid woman. Who is she? And anyway, I was absolutely, it sort of reunited, ignited I thought, oh, wow, yeah, I like being on, oh, yeah, I forgot. I enjoy being on a stage. Yeah, yeah. So, we did. We went and played on New Year's Eve. But I was in such a high that evening that I thought I won't go and sing depressing Christmas carols at the Catholic church or the Anglican church in town. I went into Eichhardt's pub, where in the bottom they used to have their pub. And I went in there, and Nigel was playing with his band, The Rats, which was him, Ned Webster, and John Dodd from Dunedin, and Brett Strawn, who still is here. And, these guys, too, they're still around. And I saw them, and they were brilliant. And there's Nigel up there singing, Louis Jordan, of all people. Another archaic music personality from the past. Like, I was like, these people have a really interesting music library. And so I struck up a conversation with Nigel, and then afterwards, after New Year's Eve, they had a jam night on a Monday night at the Dolphin, and Jeff was like, you should come along. So I did, and there was a band from Australia there, and they knew the song I wanted to sing. And the song I wanted to sing, believe it or not, was I'll Be Around by the Spinners. Of course! But no one else did, obviously. It's a great song. You've got to, check it out. It's such a nice song. And those guys played it, and I sang it, and then and that was really fun. But Nigel was actually running the jam. I didn't realize that. The Australian band had taken over. And so I'm there at the end of the night chatting away, and Nigel's there, and the Australian band goes, and Nigel's there. And I thought, oh, this guy really likes me. But no, he was waiting for me to put down the microphone and so he could pack up his gear. And he was being polite.
He was being nice.
He was being nice. And that's how we met. And then we started talking, and he gave me a lift home. And then I just kept running into him like all week while I was in Queenstown. And by that time I decided I wanted to stay. And, and I just kept running into him. And then, one night he invited me over for dinner. And he invited me for dinner. That's what happened. He invited me for dinner. So I got all dressed up, and he took me to his house. And I was like, I thought we were going out. Such a city girl and a nice country Kiwi boy, But he can cook, so that was good. And and so it was lovely. And then I just started singing sometimes with the Rats, and with Alexa's sister. I decided I wanted to do a 3-part harmony girl singing show, and it was called, oh my God, I can't remember what it was called now. Oh, bother. And it was Melanie Forbes, Alexa's sister,
right. Yeah.
And Janelle Aston, who became Janelle Mills, who's still here, who did costume work on movies, but she knew Nigel. She sang with Nigel, and they both were brilliant harmonizers. And we did this thing where we just did all these girl group songs. I remember we did Daydreaming by Aretha Franklin. It was like one of my favorite things on earth to do, is to be singing Daydreaming and I'm thinking of you, and just with the 3-part harmony. So we did that at Eichhardt's pub, made them an awful lot of money, and
nice.
We probably made nothing, because we were so dumb at that point that we said, yeah, we'll do it for $100.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was a big hit. But then Melanie, then I moved on. I had to get going. I'd exhausted 2 visa. You could be here for 3 months, and then and they were so amazing to me. Like, I came up with money for the next 3 months because I'd been working illegally. They never asked. I was like, okay, here's more money for my next visa. Okay. Stamped
nice.
it. I know. It was too easy then. It was too easy. Nobody came through. Tourism hadn't been figured out as a multi-billion-dollar export.
Right.
Not until the internet, and then it made it easy. And then I went on to Australia, and I kept traveling, and then I got caught malaria in Indonesia.
In Lombok.
Lombok.
I
Yes, that's
heard.
right.
Yeah.
Yes. That was not fun, but it did change how. Like I kind of ran out of steam for traveling because I'd caught malaria in Lombok. Didn't realize it was just had a fever. Got on a bus, went to Jakarta. Was fine, a little bit sniffly. Got on a train, went to Kuala Lumpur, and that was it. Down. And I was again traveling with the New York girl Michelle. Then she dragged me into a Chinese hotel, which is just it's a whorehouse, and it's just chicken wire, and they put blankets. True. And you go your buddy system when you go down the hall to use the toilet, and she just didn't know what to do because I couldn't walk, and she's like, "No, I'll work it out, Maggie. Come with me." And we go into this hotel in the middle of the night because I just was too weak to get to the youth hostel. So we were in the Chinese markets. There's a Chinese section of Kuala Lumpur. It was Chinese markets all night long, and dumped me on a mattress. I could hear the people next door, but I was too delirious to even care. And she went down to the Chinese markets, and came back with this soup, which I swear to God had like eyes and fins in it. It was just like she goes, "I talked to the nice Chinese man, and he's told me if you drink this, you will get well." So I drank it. It just about burned my insides, but it broke my fever, and it put me out for like, I don't know, 2 days maybe, because when I woke up, we were in a different place. Somehow she'd managed to finagle me downstairs, hustle me into another place in the Muslim side of town, because I woke up to the prayer, call for prayer in the morning. And the worst, I wanted to say to these guys, you just need to invest a little money and get a better recording, because this is bad. He's like, and I'm thinking, surely if you're using this every day, you can invest and get a better prayer, recording. But that's how you think. Yeah, but I do. I remember waking up and looking at the plastered pale blue ceiling, because I love the colors that that people the Muslim community or that Muslim neighborhood, they paint everything beautiful colors.
Yeah.
And I was like thinking, I want to do that. Like, I always paint the ceiling white. I'm going to paint it the same color as the wall. It's like. So then, yes, but then the steam had gone from my sails for traveling, and I remember calling Nigel and saying, okay, I'm at Singapore. I'm at Chiang Mai Airport. I can either come back to New Zealand or keep going. Now, Dad wants me to keep going to New York. What are you going to do? And he's like, come back, I'll marry you. And so I did. I came
nice.
back. Yeah.
Nice.
That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, Corey. It's not...
Come back, I'll marry you.
Yeah, I know. He's very romantic boy.
That's very romantic.
I know. Bruno Mars, he stole it.
And,
yeah.
And something tells me you are hoping for the same reaction, or at least you wanted him to say, come back here.
Like, yeah. No, he said that to me. He said, come back to New Zealand and I'll marry you. And I was like, yes. Yes, I said yes, of course. I had already said to him, I'm not coming back. I'm not going to move country and change the course of my life unless you're serious about something.
That's
I was
cool.
old. I was old, Corey. I was 27, getting on and long in the tooth. A heifer being put out to pasture. Well, also you meet the person that is gonna. You just know.
Yeah, you just know.
You just know. And I was like, well, why are we mucking around?
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
What am I doing in Kuala Lumpur?
Well, exactly. And also, if we hadn't gotten married, and and I came back to New Zealand every 3 months, I'd have to trot off to Auckland. I was like, of course. So hello, let's just do this. Either a yes or no, and so it was a yes. So that's a good thing.
And that's how I'm here. That's how you came here and stayed here and have never been anywhere since.
I really haven't.
Fantastic. Why would you? Why would you want to?
I agree.
Yeah.
I think we live in truly the most beautiful place in the world.
Yeah.
And I haven't and I can do everything I want to. I haven't had to sacrifice anything I love. Let's put it that way. I can do everything I love here. And my life has just been like every day. I know it sounds so pathetic and cheesy, but every day I am so grateful for living here. And recently, our bottle exhibition,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that the majority of the people participating were immigrants. I had no idea.
Right.
And when I was reading all their things, like the fellow from Mexico who says, every day I'm grateful. That's how I literally feel. Every day I pinch myself that I live such a fantastic, beautiful life. I couldn't pray for more. I couldn't ask for more. I've gotten into gardening. 5 years ago, Nigel had cancer and he had to go through chemo. And so you can't leave a person alone when they have chemotherapy. And so I had to stop everything in my life as well. I always say to people, cancer is a two-man job. So, and people who've gone through it know that. And I stopped I didn't have anything to work on. Any project I would work on was almost too, like I thought, no, don't even touch it because you won't be able to do it.
Yeah.
Since all of my projects involve pulling stuff and putting it on stage. And so I had a look at our garden after 20 years. For the very first time, we have a backyard and I might have thrown in some strawberries and, some rose, straggly rose and I don't know, a verbena or two, but nothing major. And I started to clear it. Like the first thing I did was get a guy in to cut down some of the trees that have just taken over and clear it back and landscape and plant and learn and compost. And I have my worms get fed weekly. I keep an eye on them. They have a blanket over them in the winter. And I've learned a lot about compost. I started to get into it. I have to share my compost secret, which is controversial, but I'm going to share it anyway.
Okay.
And so you put a flat beer into a 5-liter.
Flat beer?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Trust me on this. Trust me.
Okay.
I got this from some guy up north, and I tried it, and I'm like, you're amazing. So you take a 5-liter warm water, flat beer, a flat can of Coke.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people don't want to do that, but
Wow.
trust me, the worms will eat it, turn it into yum yum, and then and then some. I think it's a sulfate of ammonium or another salt type thing to keep the or not potash. No, it's sulfate of ammonium. So it's not. You mix it all up. You pour that in your compost and turn it over. Honestly, it's like a worm high rise. They are everywhere. They love it. Like I came and dug in to turn my compost. Worms everywhere. I was like, oh my God, this works. So they get that twice a year. And, so I also have the worm farm, which is like the gold stuff.
Yep.
But I'll often take some of those guys and toss them into the old compost that
Okay.
does everything. So yes, because there are some things you can't give the worms. You can't give them any onions or citrus. That'll kill them. Right there.
Really?
Yeah, you can't give them that. Don't give them that. No oranges, no lemons, no onion peels. They don't like it. And they'll either leave or die. But you can put that in your regular compost, and you can put green matter in your regular compost. And can I just say, get a mulcher,
Right.
because it's absolute gold. You can mulch up all the, when you do your pruning and stuff, and put that in your compost or put it flat on the ground, and the plants love it. And our soil is absolute yuck where we live.
Yeah.
Because
that rocky
it's
stuff,
sandy.
clay.
It's
Yeah.
just where we live on Adelaide Street is where the old dump used to be, because it's actually where an old natural running stream used to be. So it's just river silt. And that's what I've had to deal with. It's rocky, sandy. So I've built it up, and I love gardening, and I love roses. I have like hundreds of them now. Because I've
Wow.
started propagating them too. Yeah, no, I love it. So this is what I mean. And I could never do any of that if I stayed in the United States. I would not have been able to. Because you come from poverty. How would I ever be able to afford that? I wouldn't. I'd be working 50 weeks a year and probably not doing an ounce of what I love, which is meeting with Corey on a Monday morning, and just any of that. And so it's
So
so rewarding.
Here's a a random question
Yeah.
I'm just going to come out with.
Sure.
Would you be a fan of more Americans moving to New Zealand?
No, because I'm a complete, utter racist xenophobe. And once I'm in, shut that door. Oh, I don't think I care where people are from. I wouldn't say Americans moving to New Zealand. It all depends on the type of person. And it really goes back to what we talked about. I would be a fan of people who embrace New Zealand for the things that New Zealand is.
Yeah.
I am not a fan of the people that come over here, buy a section, and build a fortress,
Yeah.
and decide that they're going to have a underground compound for when there's a nuclear war. Fuck off. So really, seriously, go home and clean up your mess, and don't use us as your scapegoat. That's how I'm not a fan of that at all. But I don't really care, and I love we have so many different people who live here.
Yeah.
I love the fact that
Yeah.
I've gotten to know people from Malaysia, from
Yeah.
the Philippines,
Yeah.
from that's South American. The South American community are
Oh,
just
it's huge here.
and they
Yeah.
I think I feel a very kindred spirit with when I talk to people from South America, because we both understand how valuable this place is. We all understand that. I think all of the immigrants understand that. We do. So occasionally you get the whinging palm. I don't want to go there. I didn't understand that term until I moved here. Because Americans revere English people. We think they're the height of cultivation.
Oh, that's so funny.
It is so funny. It is. It's very funny, but it's very interesting.
So
Yes.
we
Probably
have
have to wrap it
we
up.
have gone way
I know.
over time.
I know. You'll have an editing task like you wouldn't believe.
That's all right. That's fine. That's fine. I mean, I might, because I'm cool with putting a whole lot out there. I don't think we didn't talk about anything controversial. Maybe things, the political stuff not everybody's into, but I find it fascinating.
Yeah, because
Anyway,
affects you. Yeah.
So we haven't really touched on what you've done locally, especially with the music and all the production stuff you've done as well. You're probably a little bit more known for that anyway.
Yeah.
But I'd love to get you back for a second half so we can
Sure.
talk about your all of the work you've been doing in Queenstown since you got here.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff I wanted to talk about. That Queenstown starry-eyed thing I wanted to have a chat about. But
well, there's that. That's true.
yes. So
Okay, next time too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really that will be cool because now too with Teatro Mira, I've taken another turn and I'm loving that as well.
Yes, and the singing, what do you call it? The singing training thing that you've gone through. I've had a couple of friends go through that.
The beginner's class or the advanced class. Yeah,
and I'm trying to get Caroline to come along and to go along to it as well.
That's right. She was signed up at the first one. It didn't work out.
Yeah.
Kelly's done it.
Kelly did it. Yes.
She loved it. Yeah. She
Yeah.
was very great. I know. Yeah.
So before we wrap up,
Yes.
I should have given you these questions earlier, but
That's
I never got a chance.
Shoot.
And something tells me that you will have the answers ready for these questions.
Uh-oh.
So my first question for you is, what advice would you have given to your 21-year-old self?
Oh, yeah. Don't wait. That's what I would say to me. I think don't doubt. Don't wait for recognition. Don't wait for approval. Don't wait for validation. And if you love something, don't doubt it. I really regret giving up singing for that long, and I regret allowing other people's opinions, and especially in there's been a lot of discussion around merit, the merited world, and that kind of accreditation, which is valuable in some things. Yes, I think if you're a doctor, you need to. You should look at that. You should look at being certified. But in the arts, I think meriting, grading, let's change the word, grading the arts is a mistake, and it's not possible. And I absolutely hate those type of shows where they, the American Idol shows where make them jump through hoops and eliminate people and all this competitive stuff. I think that, I don't like competition on that based around 3 judges.
Yeah.
I find things like the Spotify charts, popularity charts interesting. I don't think they're a tremendous indication of your, somebody's potential. I think you take that with a grain of salt too. But I also think, looking back to when I was 21, I lived in an incredibly opportune place for the arts. And I let it defeat me. I stayed in the shadows in New York because I didn't think that I was valid, because people said, you're not the best. And who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares if you're the best?
Exactly.
I don't think I would have ever been the best. I don't think that matters. I think that I love what I do.
Yeah, as long as you love what you do.
Yeah, and I don't even know what the best is. There were so many people here I admire. There's so many people back in New York I admire. There's so many people in Europe I admire. And I admire them for different reasons. So anyway, I'll keep my answers short. Shit, we'll never get through this. Sorry.
So, next question.
Yes.
So, this should be a quick answer, I hope.
Oh God, I'm going to try for quick.
What was what is your favorite age?
That's a good one. Well, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
I think what's hard for me is that, well, I could tell you what my not favorite age is. I hated being a teenager.
Right.
I hated that. I really enjoyed being in my 20s, but I think I was stupid and I didn't have enough money.
What were you? Was this when you were still in New York, going through college at the time, or just after college?
I would say in my 20s, we start with 18. I wasted so much time in college, so much potential with people who really had beautiful brains and that I could have engaged in. But I was too busy.
Having fun.
Having fun.
Yeah.
There it is. And... and then in my 20s in New York, I loved it. I had a great time in my later 20s and traveling. And that's when I did my traveling. And then in my 30s, I had my children, and that was wonderful. And, when the kids are little, they're so amazing, and then they hate you. It's great. But I think in my 40s, I struggled. I really struggled. And I think a lot of women struggle in their 40s because it dawns on you. See, we just aren't given too much power. And so we rely heavily on our physical attractiveness as power, our sexual power, whether we're attractive or not. We know that there are men that will do, they will always be swayed.
Yep.
And so, and then when you hit 40, you no longer can rely on that. You no longer have your sexual power, if you will, especially when you become a mother.
Yeah.
You're a persona non grata without problems. And that's hard for us. That's hard to accept. And then I think, you work through that, you become your 50s. Like my 50s so far, I'm 60 last year. So I'm going into my 60s and I freaking love it. But I really loved my 50s. If I can say any time where I felt all the pieces came into place, where I actually enjoyed myself, I loved everyone around me, I did what I wanted to do. And I probably had the mental capability. The only thing that you don't get is the physical capability.
Yes.
Although you get some of it.
Yes.
But not all of it.
No.
You can't stay up all night. But I loved my 50s. And a lot of tragedy happened for our family in my 50s. But that doesn't matter. Tragedy doesn't matter. It's
a part of life.
It's a part of life.
Yeah.
And although... I shouldn't say it doesn't matter. What I can say is it doesn't make for how you feel overall in life. Tragedy is a part of life.
Yeah.
And loss is a part of life.
Yep.
sickness is a part of life, all of that's a part of life. But overall, it's more your mental state, I think, and how it's like that old adage. It's not how you act, it's how you react. Or you can't control you can't control what's around you. You can only control your reaction. And that's what I think is very true. And
Okay.
Anyway, shut up.
Okay, so we'll say your mid to late 20s, your 30s, and your 50s. Great.
Yes. Okay. Good. Thank you for surmising. That's beautiful. And that would be spot on accurate. Spot on accurate.
Okay. So next one, do you have a mantra that you live by?
I'm going to make this very short because I have quite a few. So I'm just going to pick one that would make the most. Okay, and I hope that this doesn't go the wrong way, but I have a very dear friend, and he and I decided this was our, we came to this at the same time, after a time where he went through shit. But nothing really matters.
Yeah.
That's my mantra, is that at the end of the day, and at the end of the day, nothing really matters, because the only thing that matters is life and pleasure. That's it.
Yeah.
Everything else, nah, they're not so good. Beauty, I would say, I would add beauty. Life, which is beauty and pleasure. And that's, to me, if you strive for those two things at all times, beauty and pleasure. And beauty is important, not physical beauty, but beauty in your
just beautiful things.
Beautiful things.
Yeah.
You've done it. You've given nature back what she gave you.
Nice. Boy, that's a heavy. That's the deepest answer anyone's ever given for that. Yeah, because it's mostly YOLO. Like
oh no,
like
but
work
you
hard,
don't
play
really
hard,
believe
that type of stuff.
When people say you only live once, how do you know? Like, you can't really know if you're really living, if this will never come around. I always feel when people say that you only live once, it'll only come around, I go, oh no. Let me tell you, live long enough, things come around twice.
Well,
like racism, like fascism. Okay?
For me, people who say YOLO are people who just want to be naughty.
Oh, right.
Because it's like, well, you only live once, so I'm going to do this
if you're
really.
born without a moral compass anyway.
So I'm just going to do what I feel like doing.
Well,
that's not very responsible.
No, it isn't. It isn't. You can.
And the last question: what does the future hold for Margaret?
Well, that's a really good question. That's a really good question, because I will tell you, in 2019, I had just about had it with Queenstown. I did. It was getting too capitalistic. I was seeing things I thought I would never see in Queenstown, like exploiting people.
Yeah.
Horrible exploitation, throwing 3 people into a 2-bedroom flat or a 1-bed, and watching people become exploited, and tourism and road rage and meanness and theft, and hearing my friends talk about the fact that their employees were stealing from them and things like that. And I was saying, well, they have to. Look at the price of rent, and what are you paying them? I know you can't afford to pay them more. So who's at fault? You, the employee, or the system? So things like that, and that was making me very, very sad. And so we had a little cash in the bank, and I found an exit strategy, which was a little house in Cromwell, before Cromwell now is freaking outpriced.
It's really expensive.
I think, so it might have been 218 or I think it was around there, but it wasn't too expensive. We bought this little house in the historic historic district. We live right next door to some very interesting people with a Rottweiler, and and then on the other side, a wonderful, we have a great neighbor. I mean, I loved having, I loved being there and doing this place up. Floor was full of bora. We had to, I am systematically replacing it because we can't afford to replace it all at once. And I love my little house there. It's a little freezing cold house. We had to, insulated up, and I have a garden, and I enjoy toiling. So that was my exit strategy, was moving to Central Otago, and being over in Cromwell was like rediscovering Queenstown. The people were real again. But then a miracle happened. And I think I'm a witch, because I said flippantly, the only thing that'll stop this place is a pandemic. And
and what do you know?
And what
so
do
it was
you know?
all you.
Yes, it's me and me. Yeah, it's so powerful. It's amazing. It's embarrassing. No, no, but suddenly Queenstown has become a community again, and then Te Atamira comes about, and it didn't come about overnight. I mean, wonderful people helped pull that together, and and are still pulling it together, and I find myself rejuvenated into this community. So, I've started, with the help of Te Atamira and their support, Community Sing, which you're going to be a part of.
Yay!
Which I cannot wait. That happens tomorrow. We have their first one tomorrow, and so it's going to, So what I love more than anything is pulling people together, and I love the fact that when I started to come up with Community Sing, there were so many people like yourself that would be or are already working in the community to bring song into other people's lives. You, Masaki, who, Masa, that everybody calls him, who does the Japanese choir. Michelle Moynes, who does the Songbirds. Paul Nicholson, who did the School of Rock. But all of that. So these are new projects coming about. Plus, I've been pulling together those tiny room concerts at the Blue Door, which have rejuvenated art for a lot of musos in town. They want to do their own thing. It's created a listening, attentive audience who are interested in the people who live here. So again, I feel passionate about that. I feel passionate about writing some more shows. I feel passionate about rejuvenating some of them, and here's the great thing about gardening is that you really can't go because you plant you plant in the autumn, you wait for the spring, and it's an ongoing thing.
Someone's got to look after them. Yes.
Yeah, haven't finished my garden of dreams. And so I just think there's a lot there that is keeping me here, that I, whether I'll chisel through the gorge and retire in good old Cromers or not, I don't know. But I'm rejuvenated into bringing that about. And I also, this year with Te Atamira, I started my singing academy for the young ones.
Yes.
Just got mean. I like it. They have to do what I say. And, no more Mr. Nice Guy. They have to learn to read music. They have to learn classical music. They have to perform it. And so with those things, I'm kicking off. And I feel that's where I'm going. Other than that, I don't have any other plans.
That sounds like enough, let's be honest.
I don't know. When people say the future, I'm like, oh, well, like other people are like, I've never sailed the world.
No.
I can't get on a boat. I cannot do it. Water in me. So I love it when people want to do stuff like that. Sailing. I'm like, no, thank you. I prefer to feel the land. And also, there were times I'd want to visit other parts of the world, but... it's all up in the air, and and you've done a fair amount of travel already. I have, really,
and I think Queenstown would be very happy to know that you're keen to carry on being the Margaret that we know and love, and we're looking forward to your next shows.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's very sweet. Yes, but it's all about my roses, Corey.
Yes. Thank you, roses. Thank you for keeping her here.
I know. I love my roses. So anyway.
So
brilliant.
Yeah, I guess we will leave it at that. Thank you so much.
The marathon session.
It was. Thank you so much for...
you're welcome.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to you coming back on again.
Yeah,
at some point. Yeah, it's too fun, isn't it? It's pretty casual, There's
make a mean cup of tea.
Yeah. It's no pressures or anything like that. So, yeah.
No.
So, if you have any questions of Margaret, feel free to add them into the comments below. Like this episode. How could you not like this episode? And please subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode. Mā te wā.
Mā te wā.